I'd like to call to order Bucksport Town Council Budget Workshop for Thursday, April 3rd, 2014. Roll call, please, Kathy.
Mike Ormsby.
Here.
Glenn Finley absent, Dave Key absent, Dave Keen.
Here.
Frank Dunbar.
Here.
Peter Stewart absent, Byron Minton.
Here.
We got a quorum. But we're not taking any votes tonight anyway, other than adjournment.
Yeah.
So,
And I hope we can agree upon that.
But if you only had three, would you be able to adjourn?
No.
we wouldn't be able to call we couldn't call a meeting either, I don't believe. You could have four for at least a quorum for a meeting. Okay, this is not a regular town council meeting. It's a budget workshop. We've got quite a few of these over the next month and a half, where we'll be meeting almost every Thursday. But this one is, it's an extra meeting this month. And the first thing on the agenda is review of the capital improvement plan. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Catherine Hickson, as we all know. I have given you a packet that starts out with a summary sheet for the capital improvement plan for the next fiscal year. And this is a recap of all of the various reserves that we have. And I'd like to point out that one of the things that jumped out at me when I first came here a couple of years ago is that we have some other reserves that sort of sit out there, and they're very underutilized, not underutilized, but they're just pockets of money that just kind of sit there with small dollars in them. And it's my intention that since they're in the capital reserves to add them to the sheet, but they're not reserves that we appropriate money to through taxation or whatever. Chief Gagan can tell you what some of those funds are for. They're like drug forfeiture reserves and that sort of thing. But because they're in Fund 4, the capital reserves, I do intend to put them eventually on this sheet so that when you look, that they aren't
Hidden.
sort of sitting out there unnoticed, because they have dollars in them. And Chief Gagan makes recommendations on spending for equipment purposes or whatever from some of his reserves, but there are some others in there too that I need to do a little bit more research on. But to get back to our improvement plan for the budget for next year, what I've done is I've started out in the first column. You'll see the July 1st fund balances as of 2014. This is, of course, going to change. This is my best projection at this point. We still have 3 more months of fiscal 14 to get through. But that's your beginning balance in all of our capital improvement reserves, which I'm projecting to be just under 1.6 million. And as you know, we talk about our capital reserves at Camden National Bank and at the First being approximately 1.6 million in totality. So there's the beginning fund balances shown by fund, various dispatch equipment, fire equipment, etc. The next column is what we're looking to budget for funding, and this does not include grant funding. What this includes is your budgeted funding appropriations, and you can see that the total there is $428,500. This is what we're looking to raise through taxation in fiscal year 15 to fund our capital reserves. And a lot of these numbers will look familiar to you because these are the same level of appropriations that we do each year in order to fund our depreciation of our existing equipment. We're also looking at using some TIF funds of $200,000. Dave Mylan can tell you a little bit more about this in the industrial park. We have a phase 2 that would be funded through TIF monies and also grant monies. And it's my understanding that he's in the process of writing an application for the grant fund. So if we are awarded the grant, we would then be able to proceed with this. So this is sort of a to be determined amount. So we'd be looking at putting $200,000 in TIF funds into the industrial park reserve, and also $300,000 in grant funds if we got the grant. As it stands right now, we're not looking at, our plan doesn't show any use of undesignated surplus for any of our reserves, but when the highway director, public works director talks to you about some of his reserves, I think you're going to see that over the next few years we need to start talking about using some surplus to fund some highway equipment purchases. We have our normal monies coming out of the school designated funds for the concession stand up at Miles Lane and the parking lots, which would be think that's the pool, Dwayne, parking lot, is that the pool? Or Jewish school, or the parking lot reserve we use the school funds for?
I am not aware of we're using school
Okay.
funds for any parking lots unless they have their own. They would reimburse us if I paved a parking lot for them.
Yeah, it's about paving, I believe. Okay. And then, again, 300,000 in other grant revenues, that's if we get the monies for the industrial park that Mr. Marlin is gonna be applying for. Budgeted expenses, you can see, that we have 1.2 million in budgeted expenses. And it's important for me to point out that of that amount, 500,000 would be for the industrial park. That would be the expending of the TIF monies and the, grant monies. And so, also a little bit of budgeted interest income, and so we'd be looking at the end of fiscal 15, reserve balances of 1.3 million. So in this column called budgeted expenses, that adds up to 1.2 million, I've delineated down at the bottom, it goes on to page 2, for a total of 1.2 million, what the expenditures are in the various categories. The ambulance reserve, of course, we know that we have an ambulance. We've been approved to purchase an ambulance. A second stretcher, a replacement of some outdated and damaged radios and pagers. The next large purchase you can see down here is fire equipment reserve, 45,000. That should say tanker to upgrade, and 10 sets of turnout gear. In the highway equipment reserve, a new plow truck and a used forklift. Highway improvements, 100,000 to reconstruct a quarter mile of Town Hill Road. In our Highway 46 reserve, currently we have retainage of 23,000 that we have not yet paid to the contractor. That will come at a point where we determine that we can go ahead and pay that once the final satisfactory approval is given. Next page, here's the 500,000 to construct improvements, phase 2 in the industrial park, if we get those monies. Natural gas, at some point, we're gonna have to pay 50,000 out of reserve to Bangor Gas to complete the kayak. There's also another 50 that we haven't paid yet in fiscal 14 that will come at some point at a milestone of approval in the project. Here we go, paint stripes in the municipal parking lot, $10,000. Police equipment, we have $10,000 for an animal control officer pickup truck. Some windows over at the public safety building. Rec equipment, which Mr. Emery will talk a little bit more about. Trail improvements up at Silver Lake. Replace waste oil furnace, overhead door and operator, and widen garage doors up at the town garage. And a new baler up at the transfer station. So that's the majority of the more material expenses that are currently showing in the capital reserves.
Okay, did we, a town office building, we got like 54,000 in fund balances right now. And we budgeted another 6,000 for that,
That's an annual figure.
okay.
But if we were to look at the reserve itself, which I think I have a copy. I'm pretty certain, speaking off the top of my head, that that's just an average annual amount. I'm probably gonna have to take my glasses off to look at this because my toner
Oh, my
is
question is,
running out.
where would I find if we actually appropriated any capital money for air conditioning in this building last year? I thought we did, or maybe we just talked about it and never actually put the money in for
If
it.
my memory serves me correctly, there was discussion about it, but I didn't get any further than that.
Okay.
I think that because there was not official approval.
But is this 54,000 actually designated for something, or is that a reserve that can be utilized for an expenditure like that?
It's in a reserve that can be utilized for an expenditure such as that.
Okay.
What we'd have to do, though, is go back and look at the underlying building cap sheet and look at the components of that.
Okay.
But basically, going back to what I originally was going to look at, I'm pretty certain that just, we always throw in $6,000 a year just for whatever it takes to keep this building in in condition.
Catherine, I got a question. Last year, where we had that situation where we were gonna be cut short of state monies, we reduced the capital improvement of the yearly donations in some accounts. Have we gone back to where we used to be with this one here? Or are you using last year's figures?
We're using what we would normally put in for funding
Okay,
levels.
so-
So as an example, was it highway equipment, Dwayne?
Yes.
There was one that we dropped down from 85,000 to 55 in fiscal 14.
Yep.
It's showing this year, as you can see on this line item, budgeted funding appropriations at 85.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know, thank you.
Yeah,
I have one question. The public access TV account, ever since we started having the public access TV, we have only used a very small portion of it for capital improvement. The rest of it, the money goes into the general fund. I know that that account right now is showing a potential balance at the end of this coming year of 24,000. But we all know that the public access TV isn't as good as it should be. And we also know that we've contacted the cable company and they're basically not gonna do anything. So if we're gonna upgrade that TV station, which we need to do, we need to buy the equipment which is in the back room here, not where the broadcast goes out, but it's by the boiler room. That was equipment that was given to us 20 years ago, and at the time was second or third hand. It was not top-notch quality equipment. It's the potential of using the public access TV needs to be explored more, and there are in fact people who are doing that. My point is that I think we should start using, increasing the amount of money to go to the TV station because of the expense that it's gonna cost to upgrade that. We earn, and you're gonna have to tell me, Catherine, because I don't remember, how much do we get a year roughly from public access? We
Are you
get,
talking about the franchise fee?
yeah,
It's about $40,000 to $45,000.
and we're taking 2,000 out of that 40-something thousand and putting it back into the TV station. So it's been a moneymaker for a long, long time for the town. I know it's gonna be a tight year, but I think we need to start looking at increasing that amount to get that reserve account high enough so we can buy that equipment. As to what exactly that dollar amount is, we haven't been able to get a number from anybody yet, but it's gonna be a lot more than $24,000
I think we had a discussion, you might have been away, about restarting the committee, which you were a member of, if I'm correct.
Right.
Just so they could look into all the options on equipment and what we could do. So I know there was a lot of interest in it, but I'm just kind of waiting on that committee situation to arise.
I just wanted to start the conversation in reference to taking a little more money from that 40-some-odd thousand and putting it into that public access TV. Many towns, doesn't mean a thing about, but many towns do not do that. They don't take any of their franchise fees and put it into the general fund.
Is that where ours goes now? Just the general fund?
Yeah.
No, I agree with you.
And I'm not saying we need the 40,000 every year, I'm just saying it needs to be more than two. And I just think it needs,
No, people in town like these meetings, you know, televised, and we should have good equipment to do that so that, you know, they can hear it most of the time.
and then I have one other question for Dwayne, if I could. Dwayne, I know what you've got here for highway improvements this year.
Correct.
And I see that. With this winter we've just gone through, I know what, is that gonna be, that figure was projected last fall when you thought you knew what the roads were gonna be like this spring, right?
Well, highway improvement is different than highway maintenance.
understand there's a difference.
Okay.
Highway improvement means that we plan to reconstruct
Oh, okay.
a road. If we're concerned with the quality of the pavement, that's where I had pointed out earlier that the 134,000 that I had shown in the annual budget for highway maintenance, that's the overlay.
Oh, okay.
We were short 2.5 miles of meeting the minimum need with 134,000 before the winter started. How much we are now short as a result of the winter for maintenance, I won't know. But I anticipate that there's going to be more need for maintenance. But what you're seeing in here in this capital improvement is a road that doesn't meet proper standards.
Okay.
In the particular case here, what we're talking about is a section of Town Farm, which I believe everyone drives across and knows how poor shape, and it's the middle section. But that addresses a pre-existing failure of a road, not the failure of a road caused by the frost and what condition the pavement is.
Okay. All right.
And we discussed bringing the money back up
Yeah.
to get a little more mileage out of the tarring, this year.
Thank you. I misunderstood. Thank you.
Dave, is that one of those things that intersects with excise revenues?
Yes.
Would you care to expound on that? I think this is a good juncture to do that. We had a little bit of a discussion one day in which I became enlightened on what happens when excise tax revenues exceed what we put in for our budget in that.
In the past, traditionally, what we do is, the budget for excise tax for the year is, we estimate very low, usually at about 50% of what we think we're going to take in for excise tax. So there's almost every year, we have an overage on that line. And in the past, what we have traditionally done is taken that overages and used that to extend the paving. So I know that if you think back when Mr. Raymond would come to you and say, I want to do another 4 miles, another 3 miles, and I've got the money for it. That's where it's coming from, it's coming out of those excise tax monies. And by statute, the excise tax is supposed to be used towards, going back towards the road. So it's a totally 100% appropriate use of those funds anyway. So, and I know at the last meeting, that's what Catherine and I were talking about when Dwayne was going over his budget. She had looked it up, and we were about, just as a guesstimate, is we were almost $100,000 above projection already. So I felt that there's $100,000 we'll probably be able to use for that purposes this year. Is that?
Sounds good.
Like being the bearer of good news.
$100,000 would probably gain you probably not quite a mile, maybe a mile and a quarter of additional pavement.
Oh, sure, right in my parade.
I mean, a mile to a mile.
It's still better than not having it.
I mean, we budget at $70 a ton. And we don't know, we haven't bid it out yet this year, because not knowing what amount of total tonnage we want to try to, because your price is dependent upon the total tonnage you're gonna ask that paving company to produce.
Right.
The larger the quantity, the better the price, obviously. So last year you bid it at $134,000 worth of payment, and I believe the price varied from $80 to in the 60s, depending on what type of pavement you were putting down.
Put more 60s.
Yeah, put more 60s. So I do not know what the pavement climate is this year.
What's the month you usually do that?
Well, we would normally have it open by now.
Really?
But some of the discussions that have occurred over the winter with the previous town manager and with Dave and with Mayor Keene as to what projects we'd actually be working on. So what is new work, what is reoccurring work, and what is maintenance hasn't been truly identified.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking about grants for Heritage Park, who would be doing the work, et cetera, et cetera. Those would all get tied into Park Street or not Park Street, the extension of Broadway. Those were some of the discussions, so I had no idea of what I would have to be proposing to a vendor until we settle on what the program for this summer is going to be.
We'll have to do that soon.
And so I would anticipate trying to get that number together so that I can send it out so we can get a good bid in.
So we know we have 234, is that right?
I
Pretty much.
believe so, in annual pavement.
Right, but we could use more, is what you're saying.
Well, we normally bid all the pavement type.
Mhm.
If we're rebuilding a road and we're sending out for binder, reclaiming the road, the stuff that is part of a reconstruction
Yep.
or a construction, that's all in the package.
So this capital improvement would be part of the
The bid package,
big
correct.
package, yeah.
Right, because that's work that we would be giving to that vendor
Yep,
to do. So if you can produce an entire package at the same time, they have the idea of what work's gonna be programmed for the town of Bucksport
yep,
for the summer season.
gotcha.
And it's still kind of up in the air right now, to be honest with you.
What could we do to make it better?
We need
Hire a
to-
town manager.
We need to decide what the program is.
Yep, okay.
Not just what you want to do for an overlay, but what is going to be the construction program? The highway improvement program or new construction, whether it's rebuilding an existing road or building a road that doesn't exist.
Okay.
Do I hear you saying we need to have another meeting of street and roads commitment and get
I
this
would
set
say
up?
you do, if. not
Sounds
knowing-
important to me.
Not knowing, I mean, I think we've got a good idea what the overlay can be. And that's pretty simple to take care of. Where the problem is, what is your construction program? What is your, either rehab an existing road, or are we going to be doing new construction on non-existing roads?
Now, we had a meeting earlier tonight with the street and road, and we're dealing with streetlights, that's the only thing we dealt with. We have a meeting to deal with that issue on May 1st. I have a feeling we don't want to wait that long.
It would be best if I had a package by the end of the month that I could send out,
Okay,
yes.
so we'll have to set a meeting tonight, if we could, Mr. Mayor, and for that purpose.
Right, but I'm not sure if economic development would be ready for an answer on either the two projects, the suggested projects?
One out of the two would be. I'm confident, we can give you the numbers when you're ready.
All right, we'll set a meeting later, if it's the pleasure of the mayor for that committee soon to deal with that. We won't set a date right now.
We've been up in the air this year, probably due to circumstances, is
Okay.
what it amounts to.
Yep.
We will take care of it.
We may have to put it on next Thursday's agenda, because really not,
There's a finance committee,
Acting.
there's an ordinance committee meeting at 6:30. We could do it before the ordinance committee if you.
no,
people-
I'm saying that we might want to put it on the agenda to refer to the Streets and Road Committees at the
Next
10th
week.
meeting.
Right.
Because, we'd have to take up an item on the agenda, and this agenda wasn't posted a full week in advance, so I don't know if we could actually act on anything.
Plus, it sounds like Dave Mylan might need at least a couple weeks to look at one of those projects, right? Or are you?
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying set the meeting date next Thursday.
Right.
Because of this short notice on this.
Right.
Oh, I see, no problem. Yeah, okay.
And all of that gives us more time to
Yeah,
put some information together.
Yep.
yeah. Thank you, Mr.
And I
Mayor.
would think that if you went out by the third or fourth week of April, you'd be all right.
Yes. I can normally turn the package around in less than 2 weeks, and we get, the vendors are waiting for packages to show up, and they return them almost immediately.
Okay.
So it's not a hard return in 30 days to have a package open once you send it out.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or things that you'd like to talk about? I know. Would you
Kathy,
like
I
to-
do.
Okay.
Under the Silver Lake property, I see where you put down trail improvements. Now, is that down in back of the town garage? Is that the trail improvement you talk about?
I haven't a clue.
Okay,
I believe that that was a proposal by 2 managers ago
okay.
for the boat landing property.
Now, that was my next question. Which
Right.
piece is Silver Lake property? Okay.
It's an extension to the point.
Yes.
I talked to the former town manager about that trail system there too, yeah.
It was a series of trails, roadways, bathroom facilities, et cetera, et cetera.
Ooh.
Picnic pavilion. It was a rather extensive program. Nothing beyond discussion.
Okay.
Maybe something we want to put on hold for a little bit.
I think so, I think so.
We got some pretty extensive programs going.
No, I'm glad you asked that question, Frank, because now I know where I can get my answers
Yeah,
from.
we're just putting money into an account, right?
Yes, that's how we do it, okay, yeah. Good.
If you have any questions about any of these planned expenditures, I'm sure Dwayne could tell you about new plow truck, that's a large one, and Tim, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about your rec reserves, if you'd like to just sort
I was
of.
just gonna go over, when you get done that, I can just go over recreation.
This might, why don't you go ahead and do it now, while we're on this CIP.
Thank you for attending, you can leave now.
I'll hand it right over to you.
I had a long talk with Dave today, and Dwayne concerning the recreation budget, and it's not the program part, it's the maintenance part. And it's thinking of breaking up maybe into another, like a parks department. In other words, we have so many, this was working fine with the rec department until you're talking about the trails, got the waterfront, we got all the ball fields, we got cemeteries, we have just a number of things around town that if we, what I'd like to do is be able to sit down with the committee and kind of talk issues over, because it's a lot easier to do it that way than trying to explain, you know, all the programs we have out there. I'll just give you an example. We have all the roadsides in town. We have cemeteries. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cemeteries. Like I said, we got the waterfront. You have like 35 overhead flower stands, 15 wooden trash containers we have to get the flowers for. It takes one person about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, just to water the flowers every day. And we got the restrooms down there. We have, like I said, 50 acres of fields by the trail, near the trail system by the Silver Lake. We have the Ian's Playground, ice skating rink, Mars Lane basketball court, that's the outdoor one. We have the volleyball court, we have the swimming pool, we have the tennis courts, and we have trash has to be picked up on a weekly basis. And we're talking about at least 30 containers every week that we have to pick up around town. Talking about the waterfront, the ball fields, and Main Street. And we have like roadsides also. So what I'd like to do, along with Dwayne and maybe, I don't know, the finance committee, you're always involved in everything else, you know, and sit down and kind of go over these issues. Okay, I just want to start out with that right now. And as far as the capital improvements, I'm not, on one of me, okay, like on the facilities, it said I was due for, because I wasn't sure what we're cutting and what we're keeping, because last year we cut the amount of money that we're putting toward capital improvements. So I wasn't sure if what the issue was this year or not, or
We brought it back
you
in.
put everything back in?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we didn't put in last year's that we cut out, we just put it back to where the amounts we were
Up there.
putting in. Yeah.
Because this coming year, I was looking at for the facility, the dugout at the baseball field being replaced. That doesn't need to be replaced this year. We can go another year with that. But I also like, in place of that, we didn't get to put the building on the waterfront to house everything, because where we wanted it, it was turned down, which I understand that's. So then was gonna put it right out here where the other one is and take another parking spot. And when I talked to the the town manager that was here a while ago, he turned it down. So I just left it until this year. Because we have a building that we could put up for, last year's price was $6,200.
How much?
$6,200. And we need something bigger, because Dave, when I was talking to you earlier about the lawnmower, that was one of the things we had scheduled to put, but we can't get a lawnmower until we get a bigger building. And that was a Z-mower. But that wasn't the one that, we have an extra one up there on the, when we talked today, we're all set, because we have one that's, we can use, other than the ones that one is completely down, but we also have another one that we can use as a spare, so we can go another year with that. But the 45, I think we had 4,500 I had set aside for a new Z-mower on the waterfront. And had a new gator. But we may be able to get by this year. It's a day-by-day situation, but it still has nice new tires too on it. But you just don't know. But I like to give it a try until it does wear out. But then we can think about it. But I put aside $12,000 for a new gator. And the walk, we're thinking about getting, this is when I want to meet with the committee, we're talking about getting a walk behind the bigger mowers instead of this little push thing that we have. But that's what I like to get together with the committee. I don't know, it should be the finance committee or.
I think you need to get the finance committee, the waterfront committee.
Yeah.
A joint thing.
Yeah.
I think what you're trying to say is that we have grown so much.
That's right.
In our parks and recs, maintenance demands,
Yeah.
that we haven't kept up with it, with
That's right.
equipment or personnel.
Right.
And we have all these little accounts everywhere
Yeah.
that apply to certain aspects of it.
Yeah.
And it seems like it'd be more efficient to bring it all under one umbrella
Right.
and utilize those monies the way they're supposed to be utilized. And
Yeah.
we have to maintain what we have,
Mm-hmm.
because we've expanded so much and haven't really expanded the,
Well, just like on
Maintenance
just like on the waterfront, this is the main attraction we have in town now. And it's not just the mowing, it's the weeding, it's the flowers that we have down here. If they want it to look nice all the time, then we'd have to.
If the waterfront wasn't part of your responsibilities,
Mhm.
let's say it went with some, the marina area or whatever,
Mhm.
would that help you out?
Oh,
Would you be-
definitely.
that you'd be kind of back to normal?
Yeah. The waterfront is it's our biggest,
Mhm.
I consider, when I say headache, it's, you're also worried about different things down here that aren't being taken care of.
Right.
The mowing is secondary compared with the people who are really into flowers and things like that. They'll see, plants not being weeded or
Right.
why we have those type of plants.
Yep.
I'd like to get them more involved in it, people in town, that would take a strong interest. I know we have a.
The only thing Mike, the only comment I would have to that is if you start separating out the waterfront from the rest of the grounds
Mm-hmm.
as such, the interplay between the rest of the grounds folks and the waterfront folks is kind of integral,
Right,
in that at times they support each other.
right, and they use the same equipment.
Right,
Yeah.
quite extensively.
Yeah.
So having different managers of it has a tendency to send them in two directions.
Mhm.
And the coordination would not be there.
Yep,
Now,
that's what we need to talk about at the committee.
Yeah,
who they
Yeah.
work for
Yeah.
is more of an issue than separating them, I would think.
Right, right.
Jim, you mentioned the dugout didn't necessarily have to be replaced this year. There's 12,000 proposed in that line,
Mhm.
that for the dugout and for the overseed aerate and top dress to Miles Lane Field.
Right.
Of the 12,000, how much would have been used for the dugout?
Okay.
I think it was 6 and 6.
Yeah. I think it was 5 and 7.
Pardon?
I had 5 and 7. Yeah.
For the dugout?
Yeah, you had 5,000, we set for area, and then 7,000 to redo
Okay,
the.
so 7,000
Yeah.
would theoretically pay for your building here
Yeah,
without changing.
if they don't go
Yeah.
up in price, but,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah. And the other we had some problems up at the swimming pool this past summer with kids jumping in the pool late at night. Fine if they did that, but they left a little, they thought I was, like I tell these people, they thought it was a wastewater treatment plant. They left a few souvenirs in the pool that were floating when we came in the morning. And by doing that, we had to close the pool all day. By law, we have to superchlorinate the pool, and they have to be out of the pool for 24 hours. And that happened twice this past, and it had to be the nicest day, and the very next day it would be nice. I know people swim in the pool, don't get me wrong, at night. I remember when I first brought it up years ago, Barry Murphy says, "Don't change that, I used to swim in there."
Yeah, you guys won't know either.
Yeah, I think because I was gonna put like a big fence and stuff like that, but the problem you have up there is, it's one thing if they go up there and swim, which we don't want them to do that, but to think that they don't, they're kinda quiet, but when they go up there and, take a dump in it, and then it's there in the morning, and we have to close, and I hate closing the pool only because you take a lot of pride, in keeping that water the way it should be, as far as the water balance, the chemicals, the pH, the chlorine and everything, and you get it nice, and then we have to close the pool because someone took a dump in it, and all of a sudden people look at the pool like, "Jeez, what's going on up there? Do I want to swim in there?" So we're thinking would like to have some cameras put up there at night, and I guess you can photo, you can photo at night and have an idea as who may come in and not come in. And that would be, I just talked to Sean Gagan, who has cameras around town. He gave me a ballpark figure, around $2,000 to $3,000 to do that.
Cheaper to electrify the fence.
Yeah.
Well, we just saved the chief a bunch of money for the camera we were gonna put on the waterfront, so now we can spend it to put it on the.
Well, he was telling me that he'd like to give it to me. You don't know that.
But I think that's a reasonable thing to do, and again, the cameras are probably the most effective way we have of monitoring it. I mean, the police check it regularly throughout the night, but it's one of these things, as soon as the car's out of sight, over the fence they go and they're gone. I mean, that's understandable. The cameras are a good way and a good use of our money as compared to trying to do personnel or anything, so I think it's something we ought to really consider.
Years ago, I pulled up around 9 o'clock at night, and I thought I was like the Mexican border, the way they're flying over the fence. Holy, must have been 50 of them flying over the fence here. Okay, so the only other thing I'd like to talk about is, if we could get a meeting together and talk about that other program that we're talking about.
All right.
Any other questions at all? Thank you.
I'm fully in favor of that idea, because as a new person coming in 2 years ago, it's been 2 years already, I thought my head was spinning trying to figure out what was where. It seemed as though we had the expenditures related to the waterfront sprinkled through 3 or 4 different budgets, and as you know, I didn't know where the cemeteries were budgeted, and it's like herding cats to try to figure out where are all the pieces that go to this. And I think for a new town manager coming in, to consolidate everything into one spot, so that you can see the universe of, okay, what are the grounds here in the town that we maintain? And obviously, there's a lot of pride I've noticed in this town with the landscape, and I think that it deserves its own department. So that's my opinion about that, which I don't usually render, but I do feel strongly about that one. Anything else that you'd like to talk about on the CIP before we move on into the operating budgets? Okay. I'm going to run down through, while I'm up here, what I thought I'd do is I'd go through administrative, contingency, insurance and benefits, municipal office building, cable TV, utilities, all of those different cost centers that are in general government, and then have the assessor, economic development director, and code enforcement officer talk about their budgets, which are very straightforward, and then we can have Chief Gagan and Mike Denning talk about the protection and emergency services. And in your packet, this is the order of your handouts, and you'll see that the first one is administrative. And I need to take a look here. I'm looking down through. Obviously, we're missing something here in the town clerk's section. I thought, why did the salaries drop? You can see that there is something that dropped out of the budget. But basically, once I fixed that little error, what we have in our budget is 1.5% increase in salaries, which is for the non-contractual labor, which mirrors the contractual increase to go into effect on July 1st. We pretty much...
Kathy's got quite a budget there, I mean, quite a salary.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. It
20.48
just fell
million?
right off the face of the earth. Obviously, there's a link there that is missing, but I will fix that, Kathy.
I don't think she wants you to fix it.
Yeah, no, she needs to be paid. I'm looking down through and just gonna kind of go down through these line items and look in the decrease, increase column to just focus in on those line items that did change. You can see election salaries changed a little bit, and that's because of the 1.5% increase. We do have a person, an employee who assists Kathy in election. So there's just a $10 increase there. Also, over in software support, there's a little bit of an increase. Each year, Harris Trio increases us a little bit for our software that we use for administration and also for assessing. You'll see a little small increase over in the assessor's budget for that. But in maintenance and repairs, actually, we've got a $600 reduction there. I can't remember off the top of my head what we dropped there, but did ask our deputy tax collector to go through and ballpark what she thought our tax lien costs would be. And on that particular line item, we recapture that expense, whatever it costs us to do mailings and et cetera, cost for tax liens we charge out. So there's an offset over in the revenue budget. MMA dues, May municipal, we've got that flatlined at $7,600. So basically, in the administrative budget, it's just the 1.5% salary increase. Business as usual.
What am I missing here? It looks like the total office salaries decreased by $36,000.
Yeah, that's because I missed, there's a link that dropped out under the town clerk, which I need to go back in, and once
Okay.
I fix that.
We appreciate that, but you don't have to do that.
Yeah, don't take it personally, Kathy. This is just a draft.
I did ask for a raise.
Now, Linda Rowley's position was filled by somebody with,
Yes.
I would think, would be a lower starting salary? or-
That also needs to be revised as
Okay.
well. And I don't have that amount. That's something that I need to get.
And another thing I think that, probably should have been done years ago is, our town clerk only works 37 and a half hours a week, or gets paid for 37 and a half hours a week. Well, I think we all know that she works definitely more hours than that. I think the least we could do is make that a 40-hour-a-week job pay-wise, and we're still getting a heck of a deal even at that. But I think that's something that, I don't know whether that's going to be sent to the Finance Committee for that or not, but I think the entire town knows that she works more than 37 and a half.
Why is that set at 37 and a half?
That's, Roger had it that way for years and years and years.
Was there a logistical reason for it? or-
Because they don't work
She's the only
seven
salary
days.
person that's that way.
Oh,
It's the way they've got their schedule set. They don't work 5 8-hour days.
mhm.
I'm not sure exactly what the numbers are, but I know they move, you come in early or late, and stay early or late. and, Yeah, it's confusing.
Well, lately it
It's
looks-
confusing.
Yeah,
I live across the street, and lately, you're right, it's not 8-hour days, it's more like 12-hour
Oh,
days.
absolutely. That's what we're gonna argue with.
I'd actually be happy at a 12-hour day.
The worst thing about it, she is the only salary employee that doesn't get paid for a 40-hour week. I can understand the whole thing with the hours and stuff like that, but we all know that she puts in more than 37 and a half. But I think that's something, that
No,
one
it
of us
should-
got to go to the
It
finance
should be
committee.
40 hours a week, without a doubt, you know.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I think it can be handled very quickly. I think it needs to go to the finance committee, but I think it can be handled very quickly.
And then the other piece that also will need to be revised is up under town manager salary. That will be something that, as I was reading a publication, that, oh, I hope that I wish I was here to hear that in person, that that's going to be something less than this number.
It could
So I
be.
think that what we're going to be doing is doing some tweaking in here, but this at least gives you the
This is
ballpark.
preliminary anyway, right?
It is, but I've made a note here to, under payroll clerk and town clerk and also town manager. And you can see that the rest of the front office staff upstairs, those positions, the payroll clerk, deputy town clerk, deputy tax collector, and deputy treasurer, those are 37 and a half hours
Right.
per week. That's what they were. But I will attest to the fact that Kathy is here far more than that. Next, under contingency, normally we put $4,000 a year in there. In fiscal 14, we added 30,000, and that was for the comprehensive plan. And it's my understanding that at the end of the day, I think this project is going to spill over into fiscal 15, and that it's going to be in excess of 30,000. And at one point, Mr. Brennan had told me I said, can you give me a sense of what I should put in fiscal 15? And he ballparked it at 10,000. And I don't know if at some point we'll have a better sense of that. But the other piece of that, too, is within this comprehensive plan arena, we also recently determined that the person who takes minutes of those meetings also needs to be compensated. So I think that I need a little bit more information as to how much longer this project is going to go on, and if somebody could ballpark the number of hours that need to be factored in here for the minutes. So I think we're dealing with two different expenses here, and Jeff, maybe,
This,
yeah, is that
This
actually part of
comprehensive
the
plan?
planning commission, correct?
They were gonna take that up, they skipped the month of March, and they were gonna take that up at next meeting about, where a secretary, if we need one, or,
Bell Ryder called me today, and she suggested that instead of having the regular comprehensive committee meeting first of the month, is it, when they have that?
It was scheduled for actually the end of April.
Okay, she's gonna put an email out anyway, but she wanted to invite some of the counselors, maybe the finance committee needs to go to that, a couple of people are on the comprehensive committee, and basically, what does the council want to see? What do they want in the comprehensive plan? How is it gonna be funded? What's the timeline? So, she's gonna be trying to put all that together and,
for a meeting at the end of April.
right, yeah.
Because I guess that's, Catherine, when you might get your answers.
Okay, well, that's okay, as long as it's before we go to final budget approval.
Yeah.
But if at some point, as a result of that effort, if we can come down to, okay, so we can anticipate that the outlay to Hancock County Planning will be this amount, and then a sense of level of effort that will need to go in, number of meetings and average number of,
Do we know how
Well, we
much-
have a
hours.
contract with them anyway, so they're not
Yeah.
gonna get any more than the contract, right?
Right.
Mhm.
So,
That
Well-
contract is just, the difference is how much of it's under 14, how much of it is under 15.
15, yeah.
Right.
Yes, yeah, and so if we can get our arms around what we can envision we will make for total outlay to the commission, that will be helpful to me.
I believe you'll be able to answer all those questions by the end of April.
Yep.
Would the meeting be at the Jewish school?
I don't know.
I would assume so. It's a bigger,
Reserve the room.
yeah.
You don't know the date though, right?
No.
Actually, I don't think it needs to be, because I don't think it needs to be as large as it.
Probably up here then,
Probably
maybe?
in the conference room upstairs.
She just called today and suggested that, and I thought it was a good idea, and she was gonna put the emails out to the people that ought to come to that. But I think, the council has to be represented, I assume, by the finance committee. And I know you hate to hear that, but how much money does the town want to spend for that? What's the timeline? What's our expectations out of it? I think it's something that probably should have taken place
Yeah.
before we started it
A while
first time
ago.
around.
Yep.
So, but we'll get it right.
Okay, so I made note on that. Insurance and benefits, let's see what we have here. The majority of the increase, of course, in this area is in the health insurance. You're gonna have additional FICA and different benefits that are based on salary, which of course would go up 1.5% or some portion of that. But the big piece is always the question mark on health insurance. And I erred in the direction of a 7.5% increase next January. Whether or not that happens, I don't know, but traditionally around an 8% increase is put in the budget. That's probably our best guesstimate at this point. We were lucky in January of this year, I think it only went up 4%. But it's just always an unknown at this point.
That's basically the same number that the school department's using, the 7.5%. That's what they're running as a projected right now.
We get some guidance from Maine Municipal around sort of where to plan. Of course, they try to be conservative with us, but then it always ends up, it's an unknown because you don't know what claims are going to go through and the different factors that affect the premium cost. But that's the major part of the increase.
Well, you're dealing now with two insurance companies because of the unions. How's theirs happening? Do they give you any indication of what they're gonna do?
I don't even know if we had anything yet. I can look into that, but what I did, just to be consistent, was I put in a 7.5%. I
Okay.
think it would probably, since we're so new on that, it might be even too early for them to really kind of project for this particular group what that might be, but I can ask.
Evelyn, excuse me. What is the LePage pushed some stuff from the education back onto the town. Can you remember what that was? This last year, I think, was the first time. Picking up things that the state used to pay for, now it's back onto the town.
Pension.
This is a pension.
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
The state's funding less of the pension.
Yeah, those are all those things that get calculated in Jim Boothby's budget and sort of outside my purview. I think that's about all there. Also, Mike Brennan had told me that he thought that we were a little light in our fiscal 14 budget for general liability insurance and public officers liability. We turned in our renewal application that was due on March 31st, and Jackie, thankfully, helped us last year with the application, was able to jump in and help us this year. In the absence of a town manager, we all pulled together to get that done. We submitted the application, and I was told that in a few weeks that I could contact MMA and see if they could give me an estimated premium cost. So that might be another area where I can go back and tweak. So that's about all I can say here at this point on our insurance and benefits. Also, I'd like to go back to page 1, and you'll notice that we have a new line item in there called Annual Appropriation to Sick and Vacation Reserve, starting in fiscal 15. You might recall that at the end of fiscal 13, we had to make a very substantial increase in our sick and vacation reserve. That happens when you have employees who are here a length of time where they're now eligible not for 25%, but they're now eligible for 40% of any of the balances that they may have accrued at the time that they leave the town. And we had to fund the reserve to the tune of $52,000 out of undesignated surplus. And I believe it was the mayor that said maybe what we would want to do is to provide just a flat amount each year to build that. And so this budget does include $5,000 in it. And I ran that by our financial auditors, and they thought that was an excellent idea.
And I think what they said too, that you'd put that in there until you got to the point where you thought you had the employees covered, then that next year you might not have to put it in.
It'd be capped.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yep. But I did put that in there, and so you can see there's an extra $5,000 in there. And that would have probably a zero impact on the mill rate. Moving on, municipal office, about the only thing that you can see as a change here is a 1.5% increase in the hourly rate for the custodian, who does an excellent job taking care of this building. Everything else is business as usual there. Public access, we have two things, of course, with respect to our cable television. We have our operating budget, which is this, and then we have our separate capital reserve, which Byron was speaking about earlier. What we have in here is the hourly rate for the individual who helps us televise these meetings. Now, whether this person will still be available or whether we can pay that same hourly rate, I don't know. But that's,
Is there, Catherine, between the details and the rate column, there's a marked discrepancy difference in the rate per hour? If you look under your details, it's...
we had an individual who used to do this, who made a higher per hour rate, and that was what was factors in for the fiscal 14 budget. But what you're seeing in, if you were to look in that account year to date, you'd see that we've not spent that amount. And so what we've done is in fiscal 15, put in that person's actual hourly rate.
Okay. Okay.
And then last but not least, we have another one of those accounts that's sort of like this forgotten here, and it's called utilities. And you can look down, see that this is where we record the expense for electricity for our streetlights, and also hydrant rental, which is a charge that we get from Maine Water, and have left those at the same budgeted amounts as they were for fiscal 14, so no change there. And it appears from my going through the budget that any place where we have budgeted electricity or water, there's more than adequate provision made for any increases that might occur.
You guys talked about adding some extra streetlights tonight, didn't you?
Yeah.
I would venture to say that this budget is probably adequate to absorb the shock.
$175 apiece for the lights? Is that what that was?
This is an amount that was established before my time here, and
That's a year
Yeah.
per streetlight.
yeah,
That's
221
reasonable.
lights.
I know, but that's not the numbers. Well, there was we're gonna find out, never mind. There was a discrepancy in the numbers we had. We're gonna find out.
In the information that you had, was that based on actual bills from
Yeah.
the utility?
Well, yes, well, we're gonna confirm that number because we potentially are going to be adding some streetlights, or suggesting that some streetlights be added, and we wanna make sure we know what numbers we're talking
Yeah.
afterwards.
If you were to look back traditionally, back in the fiscal years, you'll find that we consistently come in under budget on electrical costs. Utilities is one of those areas where that, like I say, a more than adequate provision is made.
Just a question, maybe you know or maybe you don't know. The hydrant rental, 61 hydrants, 16,184 times 12. What's the 12? The year? Is that a month?
Per month.
Times 12 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm surprised you have to do that because I guess in the winter, they winterize them, but if you ever needed them, they can turn them back on during a fire, I assume, right? I wonder if we really need 61 hydrants, though. You know, do we really need that many?
If you're having a fire, you need 75.
Not money.
So that's what I have to offer. And if there's no further questions, I'd like to turn it over to our assessor to go through this budget.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Drum roll. All comes down to you.
Well, my budget is my salary plus about $6,500, so it's not much. And I'm changing $50 from one line item to another. That's the highlight.
Yeah, but you set the mill rate.
Yeah, well, that's not happening tonight. But my budget, that's all there is to tell you, it's pretty much the same. We had talked about maybe doing something more with Trio and having a need in that direction, but decided not to. So, no changes other than what I mentioned. Any questions?
Have you ordered your new book?
No, I just found out today that I can, and I will. So, thank you. Thank you for okaying that.
I have a question,
That
Jeff.
looks good to me.
As we were talking about
different things, and I was trying to think in my own mind. Really, our budget this year, we're waiting for a little bit more definitive number on state revenue sharing. We're, of course, waiting to know about our valuation. And I can't think of another one that's jumping out at me at this moment. But Jeff, at this point, do you see any big changes in evaluation?
Not big, no. There's kind of a general weakness in the real estate market you might all be aware of. But I think we're still in that place where we can just kind of wait for things to come back around again. I mean, some people are kind of uneasy about that whole thing. Getting a lot of comments, well, I can't sell my house for that. Well, you're probably right. But it's within, 5 or 7%, I would say, in the most part. There may be ones where we need to look at it, and there may be something wrong with that valuation. But for the most part, we're just kind of waiting for that market to come back. And hopefully, if it doesn't keep sliding, then we can do that. Wait for it to come back and just be a little off of where we'd like to be, right exactly on 100%. That's the ideal place to be. And as you know, there have been some losses this year. There have been some buildings that have burned, and et cetera. Other buildings that have come off the tax rolls for other reasons. But there's been some other additions. A big building in the industrial park, and maybe a dozen houses and mobile homes and large additions and things like that. So I think that maybe the subtractions may be slightly more than the additions this year. But the big thing is the mill. It always is, and we know that there's going to be some additions, and there's always depreciation. So the question is, are the additions going to outweigh the depreciation? So those are questions we really can't answer until late in May. But right now, to answer your question, I don't see any huge changes.
So if we were to use last year's valuation and any preliminary mill rate calculations, just to kind of see where we are with our budget right now, we're pretty safe in using last year's number. I think any tweaks probably wouldn't create a material impact.
Right. I think that's
For preliminary.
the thing to do right now.
Right.
So I think as you talk about some of these other areas with the highway budget and et cetera, and the road programs and stuff, I mean, really, at this point now, my memory is coming back, I think we need to get a good number for education, which we'll get from Mr. Boothby. And then the other piece will be that day when we finally settle on what we think we're gonna get for state revenue sharing, which I think right now in the budget, I've been very conservative, it probably will get more than what I have in there. But I would say preliminarily, right now, you could proceed, it's sort of as business as usual, if you will, in this second year of the state's budget, and saying, okay, I think we could feel pretty comfortable right now with making some decisions. And then at the last minute, if you wanted to, put a little bit of surplus in the budget to even things out, that's what I would see happening at this point. I don't really see holding up any major decisions right now, unless Mr. Boothby comes back with a singer.
Jeff, there's one thing that you may want to, it's just a formula change in your Excel program. According to, if you look at the last line of what you just gave us, according to this, your budget went up 101% this year.
What, up
I told you, Jeff, you'd catch it.
Awesome.
Now, I know you mean 1.51%, but that formula in that last box needs to be changed. You see what I'm saying?
Right, it
I
shouldn't
see.
be.
It's just a number change. but
Well, all
it's-
the percentages are marked NA and all the way down through, so something didn't go
Yeah,
right.
it's an odd thing there.
$870. Yes, sir.
May I ask a question as
Thank
well?
you, I'll fix that.
Jeff, are you comfortable at all talking at all about the legislative actions dealing with appraising things like the mill? And what, if any, costs associated with that could happen in the future as far as what's been passed to date? And whether we should be setting money aside at all for something like that?
Well, that is a good question. We've discussed that with the Finance Committee to some extent, waiting for the final legislation to come through. What I understand is, there was a law that was in place for the past year that required any town in a position like we do that has a taxpayer that pays, more than 2%, which were quite a bit more than that, of the taxes of the town, that receives Betty, which is the, tax exemption because of business equipment tax exemption. The state would require what they called an appraisal report to be made for that. And they never really quite defined what the appraisal report was going to be. But when you read the fine print, you realized that there was some question as to whether it was a full-fledged appraisal or was something less than that. And try to get, but actually in the process of trying to get an answer to that, they said, well, we're probably going to do away with that anyway. And it appears that it came out of committee with a unanimously approving taking it off the books again. But leaving a vestige of it that said that you don't need to do the appraisal report, which we kind of, had a sigh of relief just because of the cost of it and the time frame that we have to deal with is not very long to do an appraisal of that magnitude. But what it did leave on the books was that if the town would require sudden and severe relief through the law, that you would need to have had an appraisal done before you can do that. So if we had any fear that the mill was going to, have a problem that would require that, and I don't know if you're familiar with the sudden and severe, but if you lose a certain amount of a certain percentage of your value, that there are some things to take place where the state revenue sharing and the school revenue sharing the calculations that they used to arrive at that would change. You'd bump up 2 years so that you use the new valuation, which is affected by the lowering, the lost tax value of the property. So you would gain revenue sharing because of that lost value immediately rather than waiting the 2 years, which if you're familiar with the way those calculations go, they're always 2 years behind. So if we lose a bunch of value this year, it's supposed to help us by getting more revenue sharing if that continues, but that help doesn't happen for 2 years, generally speaking. So that's the one thing that we're kind of exposed on if that should happen if we don't do this appraisal report. So that's why I wanted to talk about it with the Finance Committee, and of course they're trying to deal with so many issues right now. It didn't seem like something that we need to do immediately, but because we really don't have any sense that we're going to need that. But long term, we have to think whether or not we want to have this in place for that purpose. That answer your question?
It does, thank you very much.
All right,
Thanks. Anything else?
all set.
Likewise, the economic development one won't take a lot of time. The first comment I guess I would want to make sure that everyone understands is that the economic development, the 100% of the economic development budget does not come out of general taxation, but comes out of is 100% funded out of tax revenue. So, just my annual disclaimer that this is not coming out of regular general accounts. The only thing in the budget that's is changing is that salary line reflective of the 1.5%. Like Tim, I was interested to hear when he was talking about the costs associated with watering the flowers. You'll see in my budget under my marketing account, the purchasing of those same flowers comes out of my budget.
You can cut that one if you want.
Yeah. So
That's two, huh?
and having just ordered the flowers this week for the water for the baskets on Main Street, they went up $1 a piece. So just the flowers. The budget for the flower lines for Main Street and the the cans as well as the baskets is about $1,400 a year. That comes out of your economic development budget. In addition, the advertisement that the council approves annually for the Paper Talks magazine, that's that's $1,000. That comes out of my marketing account as well. And there's funds. I'm sorry.
What's a summer concert series?
That was a series. That was this past summer. There was the funding of music events at the gazebo over the last summer. As I said, most of the funds in that marketing account, probably 75% of it is all dedicated funds for specific purposes. That from again concert series to the Bucksport sponsorship and lots and lots of flowers. So when you get talking about who's going to water the flowers, maybe we can talk about who's going to moving that account of who's paying for them as well. So other than that, I stand prepared to answer any questions you might have.
The summer concert series, was that a success?
I was just paying for it.
Okay.
Success is always.
I mean, how many concerts did we have?
I don't know the exact number of them. I want to say it was either 6 or 8. I attended, I think 2 of them that I was simply because I had other meetings that were conflicted with them, so I couldn't go. But I had 2 that I were able to attend, and of the 2 that I attended, there were probably 25, 30 people that was attending them. Those particular ones.
But we fund it, but the chamber manages it, or?
Yeah, it was a partnership with the chambers. They scheduled. It was actually, I think it was with Bacchus. I think it was more, David. It was a partnership with Bacchus, not the chamber.
And it's on the same day of the farmers market?
No, these were evening events that were held weekly, I think, during the middle of the summer.
Okay.
I don't think that they were, one was, I don't know if one was actually contingent on the other.
Okay.
It may have been that they happened to be on a Thursday, which is when the farmers market on, but most of them weren't because, as I said, those would be council nights and.
Okay.
Who's ahead of Bacchus now?
Who's ahead of it? I deal with George Hansen usually. So.
That's it, yeah.
Well, I just think that's something we need to look at if we're gonna fund that. I think it should coincide a little bit more with maybe the tour boats coming in or something like that, try to get that whole waterfront thing going when the tour boats are inhibited.
I would just tell you that, I mean, it's simply a placeholder. The monies are put in there for the, in my marketing account for that. If we did it 1 year, if there's a reflection that decides that, it wasn't the best way and we could do it a different way,
Okay.
I'm fine with that
I don't
too.
think that's what David's saying. I think I agree with you, is that I think the idea behind having it is great. The location is fantastic, and if we could tie, instead of having it, and I'm just using every Wednesday, if we could make sure at least that 4 or 5 of those nights are the same nights as when the tour boat's coming in, we can get twice the bang for our bucks. Because that's what we're trying to do, is get those people off the boat up on Main Street to spend money, and if they've got to get the music there, it'll draw them to it.
What did the money actually go for? What was the?
Actually paying for the bands.
Okay.
Are the tour boats usually right on schedule?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we haven't had them for about 3 years, and this is the first year. We're happy to say that they're actually coming back. They actually have a regular schedule for the first time this year. It's a limited schedule, but than what we've had. In the past, we've had as many as 18. I think we got up to 18 a year. We're only doing, I think, 5. I think it's 5 this year, but again, it's certainly
That's the glory.
that's 5 scheduled. We typically run about 4 or 5 unscheduled ones a year anyway, simply because we're a pretty good port in the storm, so.
And if at least one of those, if not 2 of those that are scheduled this year are multi-night,
Correct.
Right.
there are 2-night stays,
nights.
so I mean, that gives us even more time to
We
get things
talk
done in
about-
front of them.
That's what we,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we were trying to get them to stay 2 nights because sometimes their stop here is to go to Bar Harbor.
Yeah.
But we said, you know, when you go to Bar Harbor, you should come here too, so they're trying to turn them into 2 nights, so.
Well, we want
And
to
it's always been good because traditionally, even when they do that on the unscheduled ones, we found that only about 50% of the people on the ship actually take the trip to Bar Harbor. The other 50% stay right here anyway.
want to talk with the Historical Society about opening up a couple hours in the evening on the days they're in, and a lot of things like that, that we just need to really
Yeah.
roll out the red carpet, so to speak.
Point is that you have the funds in the marketing budget
Yep.
to be able to do that.
I think you dip into your flower account.
We could. We could, since we'll be transferring that to the Recreation Department anyway, so.
Thank you, David.
Hello, Jeff Hammond, Code Enforcement Officer. Just like the 2 budgets you've heard from before me, it's not a big chunk of the town's municipal budget. But it is a little bit different than the other 2 in that it has a revenue side. I'll start by sharing with you where we're at on the revenue side. For planning board fees, the budgeted amount expected to be received is $1,000. So far, in this fiscal year, we've received $1,393, or 39% or so over the anticipated amount of planning board fees, and that's due mainly to one application review fee for the Forestvale properties. They paid a $1,000 review fee, so that's a big chunk of the revenue that we've collected for planning board fees. The CEO fees is budgeted amount is excuse me, $9,000. So far, we've received a little over $4,000, which is roughly 46%. I don't anticipate that between now and the end of the fiscal year that we'll pick up the other 54%, but hopefully we'll come a little bit closer than where we're at now. Plumbing fees, the budgeted amount is $2,500. We've collected so far almost $2,400. So we're nearing the 100%. And one of the main reasons for that is because the budgeted amount of $2,500 has been in the budget for years. But a couple of years ago, the state increased permit fees for septic systems dramatically from $100 to $250 for a septic system permit fee. So I think you're seeing the increases there that we wouldn't normally see otherwise. And that's it for the revenue side. On the expense side, I'm showing that we're 75% into the fiscal year, and most of my lines are 50% or less of money expended. So I don't see any problems there. The budget for the next fiscal year has just a minor change to it. In addition to the cost of living increase, there's a minor change in postage that reflects the increase in the stamp fees that have been imposed on us. Other than that, it's pretty much the same.
I was just looking at the only increase I saw down here was under the dues. Yeah, I didn't see anything in postage.
It is a minor change. I think it's around 1% increase.
Yeah, it's
It doesn't reflect on the percent change column. I'm not sure why, but sort of in the middle of the budget, you'll see where there's a 1.025% increase in postage.
I'm not looking at the same form.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says 16%, 16.52. It went from 1340 to 1550, I mean, 1150, yeah, 13 to, oh, yeah, this
Yeah,
is,
those are set fees. you know.
okay, yep. Okay. All
Set. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. You're not next.
I think I am.
Not on my list.
Ambulance is next.
We don't want to hear from you.
There's two of you left. You can-
I don't care, I'm just saying, you're not in my list next. We can go, I don't, go ahead. All right. I gotta go, wait a minute, I gotta go through and find it. You haven't got it. I'm
Got
gonna
us
give
all
it to
messed
you.
up.
No, I do, is it all right? Public safety?
No, yeah, I got police, dispatch, public safety, building,
Chief Cook and
Yeah,
Bob Washington.
public safety, police, police, dispatch.
so you don't need,
I
you
gotta-
don't need these copies then. I mean,
Unless they're different from these.
I hope not either. I'm gonna give you the copies anyway.
So I gotta keep the middle one going.
We'll start with the dispatch, and I'm gonna give you the copy that I've got, so we're on the same page and.
Thank you.
No, a little different.
Sean?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay, never mind. Never mind.
We'll start with the dispatch that I just gave you. In going down through the dispatch budget, you'll see under full-time regular salaries, the pay scale there has changed due to the 1.5% contractual increase in pay. A minor switch at the bottom of that too, you will see that it's based on a 52.2 weeks per year instead of 52 weeks. And then going down through that with all the 1.5% increases, it's a proposed increase of 4.10% in full-time wages. Under full-time extra and overtime, the percentages, of course, with the 1.5% increase of the averages have changed and gone up a little bit. That covers holidays, staff meetings, sick time, vacation times, and all of those items is a proposed, with the increases, and the average is a proposed 12.42% increase. Training payroll, of course, the averages are put into there also as far as the overtime rates and the regular rates on page 2.
Excuse me, Sean.
Yep.
Excuse me. Don't mean to interrupt. Well, actually, I do. I'm looking at what you gave us,
Yeah,
and I'm looking at what Catherine gave us.
yeah,
Totally
The
different.
numbers are the same,
yeah.
to some extent, but your budget is showing a $5,300, almost $5,400 increase in your payroll line.
Yeah,
And the one Catherine gave us is just a shade over 2,000.
Yeah, all of the figures are different. Your
Really?
end figures are the same, but your increases are a lot less
Yeah.
with hers.
well, why don't you give me yours and I'll go over that then. You're at 1.5.
Oh, yours is.
Oh, this is a 12-13 and a 13-14. You give me yours and I'll do that one then.
Okay,
I have
Right,
this
'cause-
one still.
yeah. Kathy's got some.
Oh, yeah,
Go
that's,
ahead.
yeah.
If you want to.
This is a year earlier.
It's a, well, the numbers, the percentages are gonna be almost the same, but it's a year earlier for some reason.
Are you having one of your dispatch retire?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure yet. Okay, let's back up. We'll start over a little bit here. Actually, it's a 1.51% increase.
Which looks a lot better.
Yeah. Due to the it's a total of 1.51% for the regular payroll. If you go to the next line that I just went over, And the numbers are the same as far as the averages are all the same, but it's a different year budget from 13-14 to 14-15. And that is a proposed 1.54% increase. Total training payroll due to schools, proposed schools with the increases changing in the averages is a proposed 1.15% increase. Dues and travel, the change there is basically under how many cents per mile. We were at 40 cents per mile, and that changed to 44 cents per mile. So that's a 7.69% proposed increase. On the next page, page 2, office supplies, there's no proposed increase there. Postage, no increase. Under the 51 line, we call it, which is total equipment maintenance and repair, there's a proposed 5.79% increase there. The difference in that is the Windsor Group that does our IT work for our complaint system. There is a proposed 4.1% increase there, and that has not been increased in 3 or 4 years. So this year there is a small increase there. Telephone costs, there's no proposed increase there. That's the same. And under miscellaneous, there's no proposed increase there. So the total dispatch proposed increase would be 1.60%.
Much better.
Much. You like that better?
Yes.
Right, and I did it off the email. So I'm gonna keep this one.
Yeah, here's police.
Yeah. I think that police and, we'll go to the police and hopefully we're on the right page here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the right numbers here, see the right budgets.
Yeah.
That one didn't have
Yeah.
the last year's to this year's, it had the year before. That's why it was so much. So we're good to go there. Okay, any questions on that?
You're gonna buy a new car this year? Well, this is dispatch we're gonna do, isn't it?
I just did dispatch, yeah.
You're not gonna give them a new car this year?
Dispatch, no new cars for the dispatch barn.
I got another page here that I don't know if you have or not, at dispatch office and,
Yeah,
and
those are the
benefit.
allocations
Yeah,
for the total layout of that
Okay.
department. And that's one of the only budgets that really has that.
That's
Yeah.
because of what we have to pay all under the.
Right.
They pay us rather
So-
than
Yep.
all that.
All right, we'll move on to the police department side.
do you want us to do yours or hers?
I think it's the same, I hope.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
Now, if you didn't bring it up, I was gonna bring it,
No,
because I
that's a
wasn't
good
reading the
point.
same thing.
Point well taken.
This is the same this time.
Yes,
the
because
first
we have the
page is.
13-14 to 14-15 instead of.
Yeah.
Okay, and looking at the payroll line, the increase there is a 1.5% increase that is contractual. And under Sergeant Winchester's pay, you'll notice, if you had last year's budget, that the stipend is actually taken out of his line, and that has been rolled into his hourly rate. That is something that I put in there that we can change if you want to, but when we went over the budgets, you guys had talked about taking stipends out and rolling it in, and we looked it up and looked up the resolve, and I believe that was voted on, so that's why that was done. He's the only employee I have with a stipend, and so I did change that under that resolve. That can be changed back if need be, but that's why I did that.
I'm glad to see you do that. I'm glad to see us doing that, because for years, under a previous administration, the stipend was used to give a benefit without giving any overtime benefit and anything, and it wasn't really a correct way to do it. This way, it reflects what the person
hours
is doing and
worked,
what
right.
they're getting paid.
Yeah. If you look down, you're gonna see a new line there that says annual appropriation for police training buyout reserve of $5,000. That's what we discussed In the last buyout we did, we had discussed during that time of putting in a line for proposed buyouts in the future and funding that at $5,000 a year for up to 6 years, because the maximum buyout would be $30,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, Catherine, but the reason that this is put into this line in the budget is because of, for audit purposes, I believe, that would not really be spent out of that, and at the end of the year would be put into
A reserve.
reserve account under my CIP, and that's the way it mathematically and for auditors has to be done.
And it would be capped to 30,000 once we
Right.
got there.
Once we got there, we'd stop. Unless we bought somebody out and there was no money there type thing. But the reason it's in there is because of audit purposes, and at the end of the year, we'll go over. But so due to that, on that line, the proposed increase is 3.82%. That is with the 1.5% increase for the contractual employees and the non-contractual employees at the top with the stipend rolled in there. And again, that's at 52.2 weeks instead of 52, so that did add a little bit, plus the $5,000 for the buyout as a proposed 3.82%. Under page 2, full-time, extra, and overtime, the average went up due to the increase of 1.5%. There was also a 1.5% you're gonna see for a 4-hour shift we have for reserves. There was a 1.5% increase there that went to $13.11 an hour. And overall, with the average, that covers holiday, sick time, vacation, the contract hours, the chamber festival, any unscheduled overtime is all in what we call the O2 account. And that is a proposed 12.75% increase in that line. Training payroll, due to the increase of the 1.5%, those numbers went up, and that would be a proposed 16.5% increase in that line. Investigation payroll actually went down a little bit. I took the number of hours, actually left that the same, took a little bit out of it. I think we're all set in that line, so I did not increase that to 1.5%. I don't think we have any need to, and it's something that I can control.
What is that?
It's extra investigations, basically, for David, beyond his regular time. If we get a major case, he's
He's
called
an
in.
hourly employee, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's hourly, so it would cover his overtime costs for any major investigations. We don't really, at this point, he doesn't work extra on regular cases, but if we have a major case that he needs to work on and we need 40 or 50 hours on it, would come out of that line,
Yep.
so. And normally, we don't spend all that money in the year, so. So that was actually a decrease of 0.12% in that line. Under the 06 line, the animal control salary is under my budget. There's no increase there. The next line, 07, is a harbor master, no proposed increase there. Chief's expense, no proposed increase, that's line 21. Clothing allowance is 0% increase, that's a contractual item with no increase this year. Dues and travel, no increase. And training expense, no increase. Postage, no increase. I do realize that went up, but we're not using all of that, so I feel comfortable with that. Animal control supplies, there's no proposed increase there. Under equipment, no proposed increase, line 41. Parts and repair budget, line 51, no proposed increase. Total telephone cost, under 61, there's no proposed increase. Then we get into line 71, which is actually the animal shelter heating account. And there's a 4.83% proposed increase there that's propane. And that's been put out there at $2.75 a pound. I'm not that
Quite a bit higher than that now, isn't it?
I don't know.
I think it's way
What's the
over
number
that.
we put in our meeting, but
Yep.
Yesterday I heard something quote the price of propane, and it was 3.
It's right up there, yeah.
And we wanna be careful with that, cause right now we're, I think, $56.12 over in that account for the last delivery for the year,
Yeah.
so that's something that we wanna be careful with, I think.
Hopefully it'll go back down, but right now it's way above that figure, I'll just tell you.
Of course, that's propane, which is worse than, that's as bad as oil.
Well, this year it definitely has been, yeah, because they don't have a supply place in Maine, and it got tight.
Right. So that's something we wanna be careful with. Fuel for vehicles, line 72, that was priced at $4.10 a gallon, at a 10.81% increase. Miscellaneous, line 91, 0% increase. So the total overall increase, proposed increase is 5.10% for the police department for fiscal year 15.
Have we gone out for locking in the gas price for next year?
No, not that I'm aware of. We put in $4.10 a gallon under gas.
That's probably way more than you're gonna need, I
Right.
think. But we also gotta look at the gasoline down here.
Yeah.
The answer is no, not to my
Now,
knowledge.
now, as far as miles go, you got 85,200 miles here.
Yeah.
What are you running this year? You're gonna be over, under that budget
I think
line?
we'll be fine with that. That's running 4 cruisers and an animal control truck year round, so I think that we'll be fine with that. Yeah, that will be more than enough, I think.
John, I noticed in your CIP that you've got a ACO, a new ACO truck.
Yes.
The town, I'm assuming you got the same thing, we just got the notice a while back on the state auction,
Yes,
which is where we bought that truck
Yep.
from many odd years ago.
12 years ago.
Is that what you're going to try to
Yes.
go back down there and do that?
I'm gonna try that first to see what they've got at the auction, because it is $10,000, so obviously we're not gonna get a new truck for $10,000.
There's a lot of trucks in that auction, and it's
Yeah.
coming right up. Few days.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's sometime this
It's
month,
actually-
Oh, no, it's just a couple of days from now, maybe this weekend.
That's actually for next year, it's not for now.
Oh, this is for next year?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's for 15, so I'll have to go to
After
the auction
July,
next year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
so the
truck is
answer is,
what, is it
that's a
2000?
2002 with 146,000 miles on it.
And he's kept the truck.
Yeah.
I mean, he does
It's
a
starting to
good
get
job.
some problems and rust, and it's 12 years old, and the cap on that, the proposed replacement was 12 years.
Just a couple of quick questions. Most of your budget increases, the pay is, of course, right in line with people's getting step raises and the 1.5%.
Yep.
But the overtime, how come you went up so much, 12.75%? I mean, you base that on last year, or did you have to add something else
Well, last
into
year's
that?
average, you gotta take the new hourly rates for each guy that you
Yeah.
have on that page, and take the average, and last year's average was $18.69, and this year's average is $19.75 per hour, times the time and a half, which the average is actually $29.62 this year.
Okay.
So the average itself.
So your
went up.
hours went up, the amount of hours you worked overtime last year?
Nope, just the average amount we're gonna pay them. per
But
hour.
I don't understand why it would go 12%, that's why I'm curious. You went up on your regular pay, everybody's regular
Yeah.
pay, you went up 3.82%.
Right,
I would be expecting about the same on the
well, this is
rise
an
of the-
overtime rate, though, so it should be almost
It
double
won't be that
that.
much more, though. I'm just curious, that's all. And you also have on your training payroll, that's up 16.56%.
Yes. And that is an increase with the average for the full-time people at the $29.62 an hour and a 1.5% increase.
Okay, I see what,
for
we're
the
using
reserves.
smaller, big number, smaller total numbers, so that's probably why it was such a big increase then, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
The other piece too is that you have even higher, is going through a series of step increases in fiscal 15.
True, we do have one guy that's gonna get 3 step increases.
Oh,
because of
okay.
when he was hired, so that's some
Yep.
of the 12%.
Yeah, and then the other piece of that too is the revenue component over the revenue budget, where the RSU, I believe, is going to reimburse us
50%.
50% of this new hire's cost.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the other.
So that would
thing.
actually
Oh,
bring
yeah,
it down a
that's
little
a
bit too.
big
so.
part, yeah. Well, you broke the $500,000 mark, you know?
I saw that, Mike. Took me 25 years to get there. But if we laugh, but if you mention that at a Chiefs meeting with what we got and what we do, they don't think you can do it.
No, you've done a good job.
You can
I-
do it,
know,
though. It can be done.
you know.
Okay, moving on, we will move on to Public Safety Building.
Same, yep.
I think we've got the right one. Yeah, I noticed that on the dispatch, wasn't 1415, this is. So we're good. Yeah, the only one was, for some reason, was the dispatch one was 1314. Looking at the public safety building, under line 1, that's the custodial budget. You're gonna see an increase there of 17.12%. There's a proposed increase there for 60 hours a year for that position, and the reasoning for that is because of the floor maintenance in the building. And I think over time, you're gonna see a savings there, because before, the fire department was doing mostly all the floors at a time and a half rate of whatever their time and a half rate was on their off time. So I think overall, budget-wise for the town, you're gonna see a savings by adding that into this portion. And right now, she has done our floors, some of them, and reconditioned the floors, I say ours, on the police department side, so we're teeter-tottering right now with her salary being over a little bit, but it's preventative maintenance that needed to be done, so that's,
That 60 would be both sides.
Both sides,
Side,
yeah.
bo-
mostly, yeah, for floors, floor maintenance and stripping and stuff like that, and that's with a proposed 1.5% increase in the hourly wage also.
I'll tell you, I can guarantee you that, I don't know what it is, but the overtime rate for a full-time firefighter is a good deal more than that money there.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, just the numbers you're seeing in patrol of the $29 an hour as opposed to the $10.93 is a major saving, so. Under the O2 line, actually, it's a 39 line, I guess. There is a proposed $300 increase in building supplies, and I don't know that line has actually gone up much since I've been here, but we're always over in that line item in the budget because the cost of things have gone up, and we have an increase there. So there is a proposed increase there of $300 for building supplies that takes care of light bulbs, trash can liners, paper supplies, floor stripper and wax to do the floors, and some miscellaneous. So that's why you see that increase there, or a proposed increase. Building maintenance and repair, there's no proposed increase there. That's line 52. Line 71, fuel heating, you'll see a natural gas there. Do you have a question back, Byron?
Yeah, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
Under your maintenance, building maintenance repairs,
Yep.
you've got a floor maintenance $300 line. Would that remain there, or is that taken up by part of what you put in your custodian line?
I challenged that too, and I think that's for whatever it is that she uses, the wax or the.
Well, there's a floor stripper and a wax line. in
Yeah,
the
up on
building
the other
supply
line of
above that.
400 under the building supply. Yeah, that's something that could possibly come out there. I want to talk to Chief Bowden about that.
Okay.
It's $300.
Tile replacement?
No, tile replacements in the CIP account.
I
For
never
this.
go back and look at the comment in the budget. I know that I questioned that too, and there's an answer to that, but I don't recall exactly.
We can get you an answer on that, Byron, but that's a good
Yeah,
question,
check it out.
actually. But
Are you being conservative on the fuel heating, or do you think that that's all the savings you're
Well,
gonna get out
that
of
was
it?
what I was just gonna get at here, is that we just got our first bill, natural gas bill, and it kinda jumped me at first, cause it was $2,600, but that was for a 6-week period. And I did an average for the last 5 months of oil, and then 6 weeks of natural gas, and I believe in the long run, depending on how much it goes up, that there's going to be a savings, but I think we need to be very careful with that line.
No, I did the same thing when at the garage. I got my
Yeah.
first bill, and it was, I don't know, 1 month and 9 days or something
Yeah,
added
it was
on.
something
and
like that,
It was,
yeah.
it was a lot higher than I thought it was gonna be, too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call them about it just to see, you know. and-
There was a lot of things on there of shipping costs
Yep.
and
Just like,
$262
yeah.
of shipping cost, and I don't, it's the first bill, so I didn't really understand it, but
Well, that, I'm gonna make the call, too, so I didn't
Go on.
wanna.
let me know.
Natural gas for a few days this winter was well up over $30.
Well, and there was another one of a change of price from previous month. There's a
Yep.
bunch of things on there that really didn't
There's a
make
lot of
sense to me,
additions
but
to the bill,
additions to the-
which we
Yeah,
gotta
there must
figure
have
out.
been $300 or $400 in additional cost between
Yep.
delivery fee and past month, something on thermal.
Mhm.
It was hard to explain, but
I think the number, the reduction is probably a reasonably cautious reduction, but we just need to remember that should natural gas go up again and stay up, that we, you know, and we may well have to, 9 months into the year, revisit that line if it becomes overdrawn. But I mean, nobody knows, it's the first year.
Yeah, and this was a different odd year too with the natural gas. I don't
Absolutely,
think
yeah.
it's gonna stay like that, but,
No,
you know, I think it's gonna go back down, but who knows?
I did have a question mark on that line on cost.
Yeah.
We gotta be careful there, but it is a proposed decrease of 17.25%.
I'd like to say a little bit about our natural gas. Maine Power Options approached us and said that they're going to be doing a bidding process, but I don't think they're gonna do it until like May or June or whatever. But I forwarded the email on to the RSU to say, is this anything that you're interested in? I guess the big piece would be, we have to be able to supply them what we think our number of units would be of usage. And
It's gonna be difficult.
I don't know at this point how we would even ballpark that, and I didn't know if maybe Jim Boothby had a way that he was going to do it for the school, or whether he plans to, you know, ask to be a part of that bidding process, but it's an option that we have. We were able to land on some kind of sense of volume.
If he could figure out his heating days on this first bill that he got, you know, and you know what the heating days were and how much fuel they use, they probably could get a ballpark figure out of it, but it'll take a little bit of figuring, so.
What you try to do with natural gas, which Bangor Gas doesn't do, because they have no idea of how much gas people are gonna use, is to hedge. So what groups do, they get together and form this consortium, so to speak, and say, okay, we're gonna go and buy so many units of natural gas at such and such a price. Because the gas is a gas. If you buy it on the spot market, it fluctuates like this. You can hedge it, and it kind of levels that all out. So that's probably what, you know, somebody's trying to do.
Yeah, and what we try to do too is to just say, the public safety building would be approximately the same size as which building within the RSU, which would be the building, just to say, if we could get a sense of what the usage has been there, that might be something that we could use as just some kind of a ballpark for public safety building, but it's so early in.
Well, if they know how many gallons they used of fuel oil in the past, you can just convert that over to thermals of gas.
Regarding the natural gas and the public safety building, first of all, I mean, they've only been hooked up since like the middle of February, so I mean, the time period is such that it's really, I'm not gonna tell you a lot yet. Jim told you at the last meeting, at his last presentation, is that even though he was hoping to get somewhere between 50 and 60% reduction, they still saw a 30% reduction over what it was with fuel oil, since they've been hooked up earlier in the season, so.
I think you'll see it
Yeah.
over a longer
Yeah,
period of time.
The, right off the top of my head, I think the average of what this would be if it continues that way as opposed to oil was $500-600 a month difference at this point, taken month by month instead of the 6 weeks to a month, but it's still yet to be seen.
Still take it.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Yeah, take anything you can get. Total electricity, there's no proposed increase there. Water, no proposed increase there. Under miscellaneous, you'll see a decrease there.
Yeah, Sean, before you go too far on that miscellaneous account, I noticed the underground tank test
Yep.
and the underground tank license are zeroed out.
Yes,
You can't do that.
if we don't have it, we can.
You haven't removed it.
It's coming out this spring.
Who made that decision?
We've talked about it to take that out this spring so that we're not gonna use it. So we've talked about taking it out because you have to have this testing done and when, it's just gonna be sitting there, so.
I think I would suggest that you put those lines both back
Okay.
in, because I think we're gonna have to do some serious discussion as to the cost on removing that tank as compared to the cost of keeping it in the ground and
Testing it?
inspecting it right off, because
Okay.
it's expensive you're gonna, number one, you're gonna tear up your driveway, your parking lot, and you're gonna have to empty that tank, remove it, and any spillage has gotta be cleaned. There's a lot to go to pulling one of these tanks out of the ground. And,
How old is that tank, do you know?
how old is it?
Yeah.
It was put in there, it was moved to that location,
15, 14.
yeah, 14, 15 years
15
ago.
years
Doesn't it
ago.
have a service life?
It's fiberglass, it's got an extent, yeah, it's got a long service life. The problem is that they've had issues with that tank, I don't know what's the right word, getting water into it
Yeah.
through the top
Right.
and losing some product. Not a lot, but a little product. The problem is that, where's it go? It's in the ground, and that means we gotta clean that up. If we pull that tank, so there's some real expense issues.
The
I'm not
heating
saying we
system
won't
you
do it,
have
I'm
in
just
is a
saying
dual, right? To use either, or is it just strictly
That's heating oil.
natural
I
gas?
think it's
That's
strictly natural gas.
So you don't have a dual heating system?
Not that I'm
Because the
aware
schools did
of.
that, they put in a dual
They put in
system.
dual units, right?
Well, I think you are required to pull the tank then if you don't, I don't know.
The point is, we don't have to do it, we need to find out what it's gonna cost us to do that.
Right.
In order to keep a tank in the ground and keep it valid, you have to deliver fuel into it every 2 years, okay? So it could well be cheaper for us to put a couple hundred gallons of fuel in that every year, for every couple of years, and keep it in the ground until whatever. But the point is that I need to see the number of what that's
For
gonna be,
removal.
because I've had people tell me that we're talking big money. And I'm talking, tens of thousands of dollars for all that tank
Right,
out.
we gotta do it anyway, eventually. I know, I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying, but I wouldn't go putting any more fuel in it unless you could, you know.
I'm just saying that that's
Yeah.
what we decide to do, but the
Right.
point is, I think this year, we wanna get it inspected, because if we don't inspect it, then we have to take it out immediately,
And I think that,
so.
I might be wrong, but I think that Craig was looking to get prices probably to come to the council to tell you how much it would be, so that's probably coming down the road. So
Right.
that's why we kinda took that out.
But
There might be some grants out there too.
What's that?
There might be a grant out there too to take that out of the ground, because it's a municipal tank.
Yep.
But I'd like to see those numbers, it's not,
Yep.
it's a few $100,
Duly noted.
put them in there, and if we, protection.
So that may not be a 34.84%
Yeah.
decrease there. And with that, there was a reduction in the public safety building of 4.01% with that in there, so. I do have the animal control, I don't know if you have that there, the CIP that I'm going to give you, I don't know.
No, I didn't.
You didn't get that?
Do we still get, is the animal control still getting the donations of dog food supplies and everything from
Yes,
Target and everything?
yes.
They have done a wonderful job.
Oh, yeah, on a
They really
regular
have.
basis, so we're lucky that we don't have to pay for food that much at all, if any, but, the only thing that I do want to discuss briefly is that under that animal shelter reserve in the fiscal year 2015, you'll see a proposal to have that building vinyl sided. It's kind of the finishing touch on that building. The town's put a lot of money into that building the last few years, and the only thing left for that building is to have it vinyl sided, so there's a proposed $4,000, up to $4,000 expenditure for next year for that, so, but that's really the only thing. The only other issue with the animal control department is that at some point, we need to add a line for, we have in here appropriations and donations. I think at some point, we need to add a line into this account for spay and neuter. And the reason I say this is because we get a lot of donations to the animal shelter every year. We are now getting specific donations to that department for that specific purpose, and these people, I want to be able to explain to the people that do it where the money goes. This account in itself is kind of confusing, but we are working diligently on getting it together so it's explainable and makes sense at this point. So, at some point, I think that probably needs to go to the finance committee to discuss that account and look at putting another line in there. And Catherine has spoken with the auditors about this specific account, and they said absolutely yes, that should be done.
Those
So,
donations that come, that are specified for spay and neuter, those are donor covenants. And so we really need to have some accounting that's very clear that says that we can show the one-to-one relationship between the monies coming in and then when we expend them, they're used specifically for the bills that we get for spaying and neutering the animals. So it really is peeling that out into a separate Fund 6 account, which is special revenues. And taking it, right now, it's in the animal shelter reserve, but it really needs to be pulled out of there, carved out, and plumbed in its own special fund.
and there are people that actually do monthly donations to that, and actually you'll see in some of the stores, some of the stores will put out canisters for that to go to the town, and we get checks from Tosha's Market for, it's not a lot, it's $10 a month here and there, people donate to have it done, so. But that was it, really, on that.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you. Thank you, Sean.
I apologize for the mishap at the beginning. Kind of scared you a little bit at the beginning, didn't it, Mike? Thinking, geez, he's lost his mind. What is he thinking?
Big increases.
Yeah.
Ready for adjournment? We don't have time for you, Mike, I'm sorry. We're gonna
We're
adjourn.
gonna have to come back.
We want to go home
Come back next week.
We go on overtime after 9 o'clock.
This is not a regular meeting, I heard. I'm gonna tell my wife this is all we had for the agenda.
Good evening. My name's Michael Denning. I'm the Assistant Fire Chief, and I'm in place of Craig Bowden, the Fire Chief, who's on vacation. He asked me to come and go over the budget a little bit with you folks. And on the front, first page that I gave you guys, they're projecting about another 850 ambulance runs this year, which is fairly constant the past several years. And fire calls, we're going to run probably between 150 and 200 fire calls as well. We've experienced a larger number of calls where we've needed to call in another ambulance service, such as Capital, County, or Brewer Fire, to transport when we didn't have another ambulance available. Both rigs were out on calls. In July, we'll be receiving our new ambulance, and historically, we tried to have the ambulance traded in, part of the deal. Unfortunately, the trade-in on this ambulance was in the neighborhood of $3,500, and the company that we got the ambulance from, the new one, they're not in the business of trading in, so Craig felt it'd be in our best interest to hang on to the ambulance, and with what we've experienced this year with the ambulances being out of service for maintenance and repair, maybe keeping that as a third ambulance to put in service when those are out on maintenance, or to fill the gap when we have more than 2 ambulance calls, and that does happen.
Yeah, do you have any idea, like if you have more than 2 ambulance calls, you have to call in another ambulance service in?
What we do, if it's a third ambulance call, both rigs are out of town, what we do, we send the rescue truck that's set up for BLS, and it has a defib on it. We'll try to stabilize the patient. We'll call in at the same time an outside agency, or if our ambulance is just leaving the hospital, they'll respond. They can get there just as quick as, say, Brewer. So,
You know how many times in the past year you had to call in another agency?
oh, probably, I'm gonna guess probably 12 to 15 times.
Okay. So those are runs that Bucksport could pick up instead of this agency?
Yep.
Okay.
And fourth call, we've had fourth calls. Matter of fact, a few weeks ago, we had a fourth right in a row. So engine 1 responded, and that's set up to go as fourth out, so it happens. So on the line item adjustments, I'll start with the fire protection first. On line 1, the increase was due to contractual pay rate increase. That's a 1.5%. Line 2, 3, and 4 are all due to contractual rate increases. And line 5, on officers' salaries, it's a rate increase to accommodate current structuring of leadership. I was looking at that earlier, and it's an increase of $50, so I'm not sure exactly on that, where that is, but I'm thinking possibly one of the lieutenants is now a captain, so that could be, I've got to ask Craig on that. And line 21, there was an increase due to mileage allowance. That's 44 cents per mile. And line 31, there's an increase due to the cost of office supplies. That increased $53. Line 33, the cost of postage increased it by $9. Line 37, an increase due to cost of supplies, $300. In line 41, an increase in equipment cost and reduction of grants, $300. And under line 51, increase due to addition of scheduled maintenance and tests to satisfy the Maine Bureau of Labor standards, mainly air monitoring equipment, calibration gas for monthly calibration tests, which is $500. Pump testing and potential repairs annually, $1,500. Last year, if you recall, we had some issues with engine 1 and the pump. We had to have that repaired. That was found to be faulty on a pump test. So Chris and I usually would do the pump testing, but we feel it's probably better to have it sent out and have it professionally pump tested. It's pump tested to FPA standards. And if there's any problem, they have the truck right there that they can do any adjustments necessary. Scott Air Pack flow test annually of $850. And he's also got an increase in costs associated with parts and scheduled maintenance, $3,000. Your other line items, there's no change on the fuel for vehicle cost, and miscellaneous staying the same. Looks like an increase overall of a 2.8%.
We had 800 runs in fiscal 14 budget, and I believe my first 850.
850, yep.
And so a lot of the cost increases are obviously going to generate more revenue, so there's a revenue component on the other side too. But some of these cost increases and the supplies, et cetera, are reflective of 50 more runs that we budgeted. And I think that that's still probably a right figure. I know Chris Conlon has said a couple of times, and Craig has said that they think that the number of runs that you'll do this year, I think it was more like closer to 900.
Yeah, right.
So these
I-
figures you gave us, they're all different than the ones that I'm getting from,
Are they different?
yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. I mean, just look at your, you went over your, where is it? Equipment and repairs, you have a total of 11,951. And when you go on here,
This is my.
this is his copy here.
Yep.
Okay.
And
yeah.
yours had it down as 9,000. It's way lower, and you had a 50% increase, and he's got it 33. Isn't that the same?
I don't think it's the same page.
It's not the same item?
That's
Oh, that says,
51.
okay, the numbers don't line up either, from the beginning to the end.
Are you on fire? I'm on fire protection, you're on
Oh.
ambulance.
Obviously, yeah, this is.
Okay,
That's why the numbers aren't matching.
all right.
Fire.
You started on the fire then? Yeah, no, I
Yep, I
had
haven't
it
got
here.
to the ambulance yet.
Okay, wait a second
Okay,
here.
so this one should match up with,
I'm hoping so,
Well,
yeah.
I hope so too.
You're right, it does. Okay, I was
Okay.
looking at the wrong
Alright.
page, I'm sorry.
All right.
So they do. I was wondering why all the numbers are
When
aligned.
we talk about revenues,
That's a good thing.
next week we talk about revenues, and I think that we need to look at what we have in there for ambulance revenues, because we have in fiscal 14 for ambulance revenues, we're gonna far exceed that. So I really suggest in the fiscal 15 budget, we ramp up ambulance revenues to be more closer to.
Yeah, I got confused because we talked so much about the ambulance, how many more runs you're doing. I thought that's what we were running on here. So,
I jumped actually board, so.
no, it's fine, it's
Okay.
fine. I'm all set.
You kept talking about keeping that third ambulance, that's why.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry if I confused you.
And I send the fire truck over for the ambulance run, so, you know.
Right. Okay,
On Verona's share, it looks like they just pay 5%.
On these subdivisions at the bottom, this is where I need to take a closer look, but I think what we need to do is we need to pull out the contracts for the surrounding communities. I remember Roger Lane telling me at this meeting that they hadn't been revised in like 20 years. So I think we need to look at those and look at whether they're based on population or what the variables are, and revise,
Yeah.
math if necessary.
I already told Orland about because their population has increased now, has stayed flat, that they're gonna have to be paying a greater share of the fixed cost of transfer station.
The dispatch too. They pay a portion of the dispatch based on the same formula, so
There are
that,
several agreements in there.
So we need to review all those.
yeah, absolutely.
At the bottom of these sheets, that's where it's going to need to be some additional resources paid to that.
Go ahead, what are you on now?
Okay, we're going to ambulance next.
Now I'll be correct, right?
All right. And we're gonna have some increases proposed as well. Just like we discussed, we have more ambulance runs. I think the revenue will offset any increase and then some on the ambulance side. Line 1, increase due to contractual pay rate and reflects an increase in runs, okay? Increase on line 2 due to contractual pay rate and an increase in runs. Line 4, the increase due to contractual pay rate increase and reflects the addition for hours of quality improvement, which we have to follow under Maine EMS rules. We have a QA person that does every ambulance service in our region. And then it's statewide as well, it's required. They go over every run and kind of go through each line on your run sheet and if there's any room for improvement or whatnot. So it's actually pretty good. Line 23, an increase due to additional vehicle license. If we were to keep that third ambulance, it'd be a $60 fee. Line 24, an increase due to increasing cost of tuition for specialty degrees, ACLS, PHTLS, $270. And line 31, office supply increase of $70. Line 33, an increase to cost of postage rate and number of billings. That just reflects an increase of more calls. Line 37 reflects the increase in cost of ambulance supplies and projected increase of ambulance runs. For an example, batteries for the cardiac monitors, they run from $350 to $650 each. And we replace an average of 4 to 5 a year. Also paying for all pharmaceutical supplies and pricing is out of our control. That's $32.64. And line 41, increased cost of equipment for replacement of $450. And line 51, we actually have talked quite a bit about this on maintenance plan for the ambulances. Ford actually has a statement regarding the scheduled maintenance of ambulances. And it's actually required that they change the oil in the oil filter every 3 months, 5,000 miles, 250 gallons of fuel, or 200 engine hours. Earliest, with air filter and fuel filter changes twice every other oil change. So they're very specific on that. So I guess
all the idle time you guys have.
it is. You're going
Idle is the
from-
worst thing you can do,
Yep,
just sit there.
they sit there and idle. I mean, these things they're not like a private vehicle where you go to the store and come home. You know, they're idling at scenes for hours. They're going code 3 to calls. So there's a lot of abuse on the engines. So it's based on the runs, run hours, and time frame, calculated projected number of oil changes. And included in this projected cost is what they call a diesel exhaust fluid for the new ambulance. Part of the new standards we have with diesel engines.
Maybe we should have bought a Dodge.
I don't know if the Cummins still had to have
I
a
think all
urea
of them
injection
do.
or not.
I think even the Cummins do.
They probably do.
Yeah.
It's just an EPA regulation.
Oh, yeah.
If I had my choice, I'd have gone Dodge, but
Thank you.
I like Dodge. So, also included are projected tire replacements and alignment. These costs in this include costs for the third ambulance as well. Looks like Chris had put that in there, and that comes to $46.52. Line 61 corrects the current cost of phone lines. And line 72, the fuel reflects an increased cost due to the run volume increase. And looks like on line 92, a more accurate number for the ALS backups, or I should say just EMS backups, $812. And that's all I have on that portion. Are there any questions?
Fuel costs of $3.42. Isn't that a little low?
That's still a figure that's the per gallon, right? Yeah, that's what we use in fiscal 14. You had mentioned earlier about going out to bid. I'm hoping now that our payroll clerk has gotten through her first payroll successfully, that I can work with her at some point to do the fuel bidding, that her position is the one that's.
Because gas for the police officers, $4.10.
I think they're way above what they need to be. We don't pay the tax either, do we? You know, so there's like 40 cents a gallon savings right there, so I don't think it's too bad, really.
For the ambulance.
For the
But
ambulance.
police is at $4.10 a gallon.
They're over.
If we can get it for $3.42, I mean, that's great for diesel.
Yeah.
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 Any other questions? Okay.
These numbers, Mike, they include the idea of keeping the third ambulance?
Mm-hmm.
The basic reason for the third ambulance is if you have one down, right?
Down, or if we have two rigs out,
Yeah.
there's a lot of times, instead of taking the rescue truck, heck, if I get another ambulance, I'm gonna grab that.
Where's that gonna be stored?
I think we're just gonna leave it outside, on the
Okay.
side.
Is that capable with the equipment that's in it? You're gonna have to equip the whole thing too, right?
I think we have quite a bit that we could do
Can
with
you,
what
what do
we
you put,
have.
can you plug it into a heater outside?
Yeah, I think we could run an extension out and just plug it in. Yeah.
I also understood from the chief there that the intent would be possibly to be able to get into that real lucrative business of transporting people from nursing homes to
Right.
hospitals and stuff like that if you had the third ambulance.
We had third rig, you could
It's another-
put a couple per diem people on,
Right.
and you could,
Right, make some extra money.
I think they're looking, I know, like Bangor Fire, they'll pay their, and I'm just using them as an example, they'll pay them 10 hours, 2 people, and they're making money. They're making $1,500 plus on transfers.
Yep.
So there is a lot of money.
The only thing, and I like the idea of making the money, the only thing that bothers me about doing that, Mike, is we take 2 of our people, whomever, and they're out on the transport ambulance. And you know as well as I do how difficult it can be sometimes if we get a double run.
Yep.
So now we're sitting here with 2 ambulance runs, and we can't staff them because 2 of our people are out on a transport, which may make more fiscal sense, but it doesn't make
Right.
service sense.
Right, and that would have to be looked at, I mean,
Yeah.
they may
I
have
mean,
to.
as I said, I need to have some more info
Right.
before, yeah.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
And I'm not gonna look at it as a third $16,000 stretcher for the third ambulance.
No. But I'll tell you, those stretchers work good, great.
Oh, absolutely, I understand
They'll
that.
save a back.
But for
I know-
something that's gonna sit out in the cold and maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we've got
everything.
our other older stretchers for that to use. So that's why I'm saying we could probably, put BLS equipment that we already have in that rig for very minimal cost, if any, so.
I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, you guys came up with a plan that somehow paid some reserve people to be like on call because it would save calling in back first line people that get the higher pay rate. And it was all gonna be justified through all these savings. I'd like the chief to come back with proving to us that what we did back then actually is saving the town money.
Are you saying on the $3 an hour being on call for the call department for
I think so,
ambulance?
yeah.
Is that what,
Right,
okay,
yeah.
yep.
It was supposed to help the schedule, because
Right.
he was having trouble fill
It
it.
was also supposed to
He was supposed to
relieve people like you that were getting up
Right.
10 hours and were dead tired and,
That was supposed to be reported to Mike at certain intervals, which really, I don't know if it ever
so
got through
we-
him
We
or
just need
not.
some data on that to see
Okay.
whether that is
Yep.
really working the way it was
Right.
intended.
All right. Any more questions on that?
Thank you.
Okay. I could certainly go on the School Street Firehouse if you want.
I do.
Okay, I'll make it quick. We kind of ran out of gas on it last year. Of course, all the help we have up there is all volunteer. And I challenge anyone who wants to help, come on over and we'll put you to work. It's a lot of fun. And eventually, we're gonna get this place looking great. We poured the floor, the cement floor last year. And it turned out really nice. It's actually awesome in there. We've stored our antiques back in there. The floor is nice and straight and level, and it's great. We had, last year, wanted to put a new door, windows, and siding on, but we, again, ran out of volunteers, time, and weather. And this year, we are hoping to do that, plus sheathe the second floor and put the stairwell and railings in for the second floor as well. So we're looking for volunteers all the time, so if any of you can help, we would love to have you up there.
Has there ever been any discussion, other than just over a cup of coffee, possibly renaming that building or dedicating that building.
It's already named, isn't it?
Is it?
So,
I
Has
heard-
it been?
I thought I heard they were gonna call it Gene Weston.
you know,
I think
I know it was hashed around a little
Yeah.
bit, and I think that's as far as it went.
Yeah,
As far as it went. You know, I don't think anyone's opposed to any of those type of ideas.
No, that's what I'm saying, I was just wondering
Yeah.
if it was official or copy.
The only name I've really known it to be was Engine House.
Yeah,
That's where they kept the 1911 Howe up there all those years. Yeah. So,
Thank you again.
Was that?
Remember that?
he tended to the horse up there, didn't he?
You probably worked that hand pump.
So that's all I have.
I lived right next to it.
I have
I've
one
been in that
question.
building more than most of you.
Do all the people at the public safety building have the same barber? I'm looking at,
I think so.
They may now, they didn't before.
Sean doesn't go to a barber, does he?
He doesn't,
We don't have to adjourn this meeting,
Thank
do
you.
we, because it's not official. All
oh, we do actually.
It is official.
right.
All right, item number 6 is adjournment.
Amen, yes, I second that. First that, I make my
I'll
motion.
second it.
Jeez, I'm all excited here, let's go.
He's all excited.
We're gonna have a meeting at all on?
We gotta set meetings.
Yeah,
We gotta
we'll
do it
set,
next
we're
week.
gonna set everything at the regular council meeting next week. All
Okay.
Yeah.
right? All those in favor, adjournment.